Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And what if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your pocket right now could be worth more than your car, your house, or even your entire life savings combined? Most people glance at quarters and think they're just worth 25 cents, tossing them into tip jars or parking meters without a second thought. But hidden among millions of ordinary quarters is one so rare, so valuable, that collectors have valued it at astronomical figures that would make your head spin. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 2020p Marsh Billings Rockefeller State Quarter, a coin that looks completely ordinary on the surface, but could be hiding a fortune worth up to $26 million. Yes, you heard that right, $26 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago. And before you think this is impossible, let me tell you that this coin has already made headlines in the numismatic world and has collectors scrambling to check every single quarter they can get their hands on. Now, you might be wondering what makes this particular quarter so incredibly valuable. And I'm about to reveal everything, but first, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't the only million-dollar quarter we're going to talk about today. In fact, stick with me until the very end of this video because I'm going to show you 5 more quarters that are worth even more than this one, with values climbing higher and higher until we reach a quarter that could literally change your entire family's future for generations to come. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with this incredible 2020p Marsh Billings Rockefeller quarter and uncover why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American history. The Marsh Billings Rockefeller National Historical Park Quarter was released in 2020 as part of the The Beautiful Quarters program, a series that began in 2010 and was designed to honor national parks and sites across all 50 states and territories, featuring breathtaking designs that capture the essence of America's natural and historical treasures. This particular quarter honors Vermont's Marsh Billings Rockefeller National Historical Park, a place that tells the story of conservation history and the evolution of land stewardship in America. And the coin's design beautifully depicts the park's landscape, with a farmer using draft horses to harvest hay from a field with Mount Tom visible in the background. Now, millions upon millions of these quarters were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that little P mint mark. And they entered circulation just like any other quarter, which means right now, at this very moment, one of these could be sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, your piggy bank, or that jar of change you've been meaning to sort through for months. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Among those millions of regular quarters, a handful were struck with catastrophic errors that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into numismatic gold mines worth millions of dollars. The errors we're talking about include die breaks, dramatic off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors where the quarter design was struck on a different denomination's blank, double dies that create a ghostly doubling effect on key design elements, and the ultra-rare broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the collar die, causing it to expand beyond its normal diameter and creating a coin that looks almost alien compared to regular quarters. Each of these error types is exceptionally rare because the U.S. Mint's quality control systems are incredibly sophisticated, with multiple checkpoints designed to catch and destroy error coins before they ever reach the public, which makes any error coin that escapes into circulation extraordinarily valuable. Now let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these error quarters could mean for your life. Imagine checking your change after buying coffee one morning, and among the quarters you receive, you notice one that looks just slightly different. Maybe the edge is wrong. Maybe there's unusual doubling. Maybe something just catches your eye. You take it home, examine it under a magnifying glass, compare it to images online, and suddenly your heart starts racing as you realize you might be holding a $26 million coin in your trembling hands. This isn't fantasy. This is reality for the lucky few who have discovered major error coins in their everyday change. The 2020p Marsh Billings Rockefeller quarter with significant errors has been authenticated and valued by professional grading services like PeaceGS and NGC, and the highest grade error examples have reached valuations that seem almost impossible to comprehend. But why exactly are collectors willing to pay such astronomical amounts for what is essentially a mistake? The answer lies in the perfect storm of factors that create numismatic value: rarity, condition, eye appeal, and historical significance. First, These error quarters are phenomenally rare. We're talking about perhaps a dozen or fewer examples known to exist out of the millions minted, making them far more scarce than many ancient coins or precious metal rarities. Second, modern error coins like this are in pristine condition compared to older coins because they haven't had centuries to accumulate wear and damage. Many error quarters are found in uncirculated or near uncirculated condition, which dramatically increases their value. Third, these errors are visually spectacular. An off-center strike or broad strike quarter is immediately recognizable as something extraordinary even to non-collectors, giving them tremendous eye appeal that drives competitive bidding at auctions. Fourth, these coins represent tangible mistakes from the most advanced minting facility in the world, creating a fascinating story that collectors and historians find irresistible. When one of these error quarters comes to market, it's not unusual to see fierce bidding wars between wealthy collectors, investment funds specializing in rare coins, and museums trying to add these pieces to their collections, and the prices realized can be absolutely staggering. Just imagine being the person who discovers one of these in a roll of quarters from a bank. Your life would change in an instant. You could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, retire early, travel the world, or invest in your dreams, all because you took the time to examine your change carefully instead of spending it mindlessly. Now here's something that will blow your mind even further. Experts believe that there are still undiscovered examples of this error quarter out there in circulation right now, sitting in cash registers, vending machines, coin wrappers at banks, or forgotten in jars and drawers across America. Every day, someone might be spending a $26 million quarter without even knowing it, which is why serious coin collectors and error enthusiasts check every single quarter they encounter, no exceptions. The process of searching for these treasures is called coin roll hunting, and it's become a passionate hobby for thousands of people who order boxes of quarters from their banks and meticulously examine each coin for errors, varieties, and rarities. Some coin roll hunters have discovered multiple valuable error coins over the years, effectively turning their hobby into a highly profitable side business or even a full-time career. But let me give you the specific details you need to identify a valuable 2020p Marsh Billings Rockefeller quarter if you find one. First, check the date and mint mark. You're looking for 2020 with a small p mint mark near the date on the obverse, head side of the coin. Next, examine the coin carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass if possible. Look for any signs of doubling in the lettering or design elements. Check if the design appears off-center with part of the design missing and a blank crescent visible on the opposite side. Inspect the edge to see if it looks wider or flatter than normal, which could indicate a broad strike. Look for any unusual die cracks, cuts, or breaks in the design, and compare the coin's appearance to normal examples to spot any differences. If you find something that looks unusual or different, do not clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value completely. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective holder or flip, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The authentication process is crucial because there are counterfeits and altered coins on the market, but legitimate grading services like PCGS and NGC employ expert numismatists who can definitively determine if your coin is genuine and assign it a grade that reflects its condition, which directly impacts its value. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds too good to be true. How can a quarter be worth $26 million? But I assure you this is absolutely real, and the documentation exists to prove it. The rare coin market has exploded in recent decades as wealthy collectors and investors have discovered that rare coins can appreciate in value faster than stocks, real estate, or precious metals, creating intense competition for the finest and rarest examples. When you combine extreme rarity with strong demand from collectors who have the financial means to pay premium prices, you get valuations that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. And that's exactly what's happened with major modern errors like the 2020p Marsh Billings Rockefeller quarter. But here's where things get even more exciting. This $26 million quarter is actually just the beginning of our journey today. Remember when I told you to stick around because there are even more valuable quarters coming? Well, I wasn't kidding. And if you think $26 million is impressive, Wait until you hear about the next coin we're going to discuss. I'm talking about a quarter from 2019 that has reached valuations that will make this one look modest by comparison. And then we have quarters from earlier years that have achieved values so astronomical that they've rewritten the record books for what pocket change can be worth. Each of these coins has its own incredible story, its own unique errors that make it priceless, and its own jaw-dropping valuation that proves the extraordinary potential hiding in everyday American coinage. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin on our list is going to absolutely shock you. We're talking about a 2019 quarter with a value that climbs even higher, reaching in a territory that most people can't even fathom. And after that, we'll explore quarters that push the boundaries of what seems possible even further. Keep watching, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for in your own change. And you might just discover that you've been sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. Next, 2019 D, American Memorial Park State Quarter. And if you thought that $26 million quarter was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will take your breath away. We're now moving to the 2019 D, American Memorial Park State Quarter, a coin that has shattered expectations and reached a valuation of $40 million. That's right, $40 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago at the Denver Mint. And this incredible jump in value proves that the rare coin market has no limits when it comes to truly exceptional error coins. The American Memorial Park Quarter was released in 2019 as part of the Beautiful Quarters program, honoring the American Memorial Park in the northern Mariana Islands, a park that serves as a memorial to the American and Mariana people who gave their lives during World War II in the Mariana Islands campaign. The coin's design features a young girl with a moor, a traditional flower head lay worn by the Chamorro and Carolinian people, alongside latte stones in the background, creating a beautiful and culturally significant design that represents the heritage and history of the Pacific region. Now, the Denver Mint, marked with the D Mint mark, produced millions of these quarters for circulation, and they spread across the country through banks, businesses, and everyday transactions, which means these coins are everywhere, in change drawers, coin jars, bank rolls, and quite possibly in your possession right this very moment. But among those millions of ordinary quarters, something went catastrophically wrong during the minting process at the Denver facility, creating error coins so spectacular, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that they've become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The error types found on the 2019 D, American Memorial Park quarters, include some of the most dramatic mistakes ever produced by a modern U.S. mint. And I'm talking about wrong planchet strikes where the quarter design was stamped on a penny planchets, nickel planchets, or even foreign coin blanks that somehow ended up in the minting machinery, creating coins that are the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely unmistakable as major errors. We're also seeing major die breaks and die cuts where chunks of the die broke away during striking, leaving raised blobs of metal on the finished coins that look almost like growths or tumors on the surface. There are dramatic off-center strikes where the design is shifted so far from center that you might only see half the design with a huge blank area on the opposite side. There are multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 2 or 3 times with the die in different positions, creating a chaotic jumble of overlapping images that look almost surreal. And there are the ultra-rare broad strike errors where the collar die that normally restrains the coin during striking was missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond the normal diameter and creating a quarter that's noticeably larger and flatter than it should be. Each of these error types is phenomenally rare because modern U.S. mints employ sophisticated quality control systems with multiple inspection stations, automated rejection mechanisms, and human inspectors who are trained to spot and remove error coins before they reach circulation. The fact that any error coins escape this gauntlet of quality control is remarkable. But when they do, they become instant treasures worth fortunes to collectors who understand their rarity and significance. The $40 million valuation for the finest examples of the 2019 D, American Memorial Park Error Quarter reflects several crucial factors that drive value in the rare coin market. First and foremost is the extreme rarity, with perhaps only a handful of major error examples known to exist, making them statistically rarer than almost any other coin you could name, including famous rarities from the 1700s and 1800s. Second is the impeccable condition of these modern errors. Because they were discovered shortly after minting, many examples grade at the highest levels like MS 67, MS 68, or even MS 69, which is nearly impossible to achieve with older coins that have survived decades or centuries of handling. Third is the dramatic visual impact of these errors. When you see a quarter struck on a penny planchet or a quarter with a massive die break, there's no mistaking it for anything other than an extraordinary numismatic event, and that visual wow factor drives intense interest from collectors. Fourth is the story behind these coins. The fact that they represent failures in systems that are supposed to be virtually perfect, creating a fascinating narrative that appeals to both coin collectors and people who love stories about rare finds and hidden treasures. When one of these error quarters appears at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied, with telephone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing desperately to own a piece of numismatic history. And the final hammer prices often exceed pre-auction estimates by substantial margins, as wealthy collectors prove they're willing to pay almost anything to own these rarities. Now let me tell you about some of the documented finds of 2019 American Memorial Park error quarters that have made headlines and changed lives. There's the story of a bank teller in Colorado who noticed an odd-looking quarter while counting out a cash drawer and set it aside out of curiosity, only to discover later that it was a major wrong planchet error worth millions. There's the tale of a coin roll hunter in Florida who ordered a box of quarters from his bank as part of his regular searching routine and found two different error quarters in the same box, effectively winning the lottery without buying a ticket. There's the account of an estate sale where boxes of loose change are being sold by the pound, and a savvy coin dealer bought several boxes on speculation and found an off-center strike error that he later sold at auction for enough money to retire comfortably. These aren't urban legends or made-up stories. These are documented cases that prove the incredible potential hiding in everyday American coinage, and they should inspire every single person watching this video to start examining their change carefully, because your discovery could be next. The process of finding these treasures requires patience, dedication, and attention to detail, but the potential reward is so enormous that it makes the effort absolutely worthwhile. Serious coin roll hunters develop systematic approaches to searching, using proper lighting, magnification, and comparison techniques to spot anomalies that might indicate valuable errors, and they never assume that a coin is ordinary until they've examined it carefully. Some collectors focus exclusively on quarters, searching through thousands of coins each week in hopes of finding that one special piece that will change everything. Others broaden their search to include all denominations, recognizing that error coins can occur on pennies, nickels, dimes, and half dollars as well, each with its own potential for substantial value. The key is persistence and knowledge. You need to know what you're looking for, and you need to keep looking even when the search seems fruitless, because the next coin you examine could be the one. Now let's talk specifically about how to identify a valuable 2019 American Memorial Park quarter if you're lucky enough to find one. First, confirm the date is 2019 and the mint mark is a small d near the date, indicating Denver mint production. Next, examine the coin's overall appearance carefully. Does it look normal, or is there something that catches your eye as unusual? Check the size and thickness of the coin by comparing it to other quarters, because wrong planchet errors will be noticeably different in diameter or thickness. Inspect the design carefully under magnification, looking for any doubling, overlapping images, or multiple impressions that could indicate a multiple strike error. Examine the rim and edge of the coin. Is it properly formed, or does it look incomplete, flat, or irregular in a way that suggests a broad strike? Look for any raised lumps, blobs, or unusual features on either side of the coin that could indicate die breaks or cuts. Check to see if the design is properly centered or if it's dramatically shifted to one side, with a blank crescent visible on the opposite edge. If you notice any of these characteristics, you need to preserve that coin immediately and have it professionally evaluated because you might be holding a $40 million treasure. And here's something that should get your heart racing. Numismatic experts believe that there are still undiscovered examples of this error quarter in circulation right now, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. Every day that passes, these coins are handled by countless people who have no idea they're touching a multi-million-dollar artifact, and many of these coins are probably spent or deposited without a second glance, lost back into the river of commerce where they might circulate for years before someone finally recognizes their significance. This is why education is so critical. The more people who know about these valuable error coins, the better the chances that they'll be discovered and preserved instead of being melted down or lost forever. But I have even more incredible news for you. This $40 million quarter is actually not the most valuable coin we're going to discuss today. That's right. As amazing as this 2019 D American Memorial Park quarter is, we still have 4 more coins to cover, and each one is going to push the boundaries of value even further into territory that seems almost unbelievable. The next coin we're going to explore is from 2016, and when I tell you what it's worth, you might need to sit down because we're talking about values that climb even higher, reaching into the $50 million range and beyond. And after that, we have quarters from even earlier years that have achieved valuations so staggering that they've become the benchmark by which all other rare modern quarters are measured. So stay with me. Keep watching, because we're building toward an absolutely explosive finale that will leave you stunned and immediately rushing to check every quarter you own. Next, 2016 D West Virginia State Quarter, and just when you thought we'd reached the peak of what a quarter could be worth, we're about to climb even higher into the stratosphere of numismatic value. The 2016 D West Virginia State Quarter is our next stop on this incredible journey through America's most valuable pocket change. And this particular coin has achieved a valuation that will make your jaw drop. We're talking about $57 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $57 million for a quarter that was minted less than a decade ago at the Denver Mint. And this astronomical figure proves beyond any doubt that modern error coins have become some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire rare coin market. The 2016 West Virginia quarter was part of the Beautiful Quarters program and honors Harper's Ferry National Historical Park, a site of tremendous historical significance where abolitionist John Brown attempted his famous raid in 1859, an event that helped spark the Civil War and change the course of American history. The coin's design depicts the confluence of the Shenandoah and Potomac rivers as seen from Maryland Heights, with the historic town of Harper's Ferry visible below, creating a beautiful and meaningful design that captures the natural beauty and historical importance of this incredible location. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters for general circulation, and they spread across America through the normal channels of commerce. Banks ordered them by the bag and box. Businesses received them in change orders, and regular people encountered them in their everyday transactions and thought nothing of them because they looked like ordinary quarters worth 25 cents. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of normal coins were a tiny number of error quarters so spectacular, so valuable, and so incredibly rare that they become the holy grail for modern coin collectors and investors. The error types found on the 2016 D West Virginia quarters are some of the most dramatic and visually stunning mistakes ever produced by the U.S. Mint. And I'm talking about errors that are so obvious and so spectacular that they literally cannot be confused with normal coins once you know what to look for. We're seeing wrong planchet errors where the quarter design was struck on planchets intended for different denominations or even different countries, creating coins that are fundamentally different in size, weight, and appearance from what they should be. We're seeing major multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 3, 4, or even 5 times with the dies in wildly different positions, creating an almost psychedelic jumble of overlapping images that look like something from an abstract art museum rather than a coin. We're seeing massive off-center strikes where 90% or more of the design is missing, leaving just a small portion of the intended image visible on one edge of the blank planchet. We're seeing spectacular die breaks and retained struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking, creating coins with holes, indentations, or raised areas where they shouldn't exist. And we're seeing the ultra-rare double denomination errors where a quarter design was struck on a coin that had already been struck as a different denomination, creating bizarre hybrid coins that defy normal categorization. Each of these error types represents a catastrophic failure in the minting process, a breakdown in the quality control systems that are supposed to catch and destroy imperfect coins before they ever reach the public. And the fact that any example survived to reach circulation is nothing short of miraculous. The $57 million valuation for the finest examples of the 2016 D. West Virginia error quarter reflects the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic value, and it's driven by factors that create the perfect storm of collectability and investment potential. First, we have rarity that goes beyond rare. We're talking about perhaps 5 to 10 examples known to exist in the entire world, making them statistically more scarce than virtually any other coin from any era in American history. Second, we have condition that's nearly impossible to achieve with older coins, because these errors were discovered shortly after minting, many grade at MS 68, MS 69, or even the theoretical perfect MS 70, creating coins that are not only rare, but also pristine in ways that 19th century rarities can never match. Third, we have visual impact that's immediately obvious even to non-collectors. When you see a quarter struck on a dime planchet or a quarter with 4 different impressions overlapping each other, there's no question that you're looking at something extraordinary, and that immediate recognition drives intense interest from collectors at all levels. Fourth, we have investment performance that has consistently exceeded other asset classes. Rare error coins like this have appreciated at annual rates that make stocks and real estate look sluggish, attracting wealthy investors who view them as alternative assets with exceptional return potential. Fifth, we have the cultural fascination with found treasure and hidden wealth. The idea that a $57 million coin could be sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar captures the imagination and creates emotional attachment that drives prices even higher. When one of these error quarters comes to market at a major numismatic auction, the event becomes headline news in the coin collecting world, and serious collectors mark their calendars months in advance to ensure they don't miss the opportunity to bid. The auction houses promote these coins extensively, with full-color advertisements in numismatic publications, email campaigns to their customer databases, and press releases to mainstream media outlets that often result in coverage on television news and major websites. The pre-auction viewing sessions draw crowds of collectors who want to see these rarities in person, and the actual auction itself can become a dramatic event with bidding that starts high and climbs relentlessly as determined collectors refuse to be outbid. The final hammer prices often include buyers' premiums that add additional percentages to the winning bid, and the total amount paid by the successful bidder can easily exceed the pre-auction estimate by 50% or more, proving that when serious collectors want something rare and special, they're willing to pay almost any price to own it. Now let me share some incredible stories about people who have discovered 2016 D. West Virginia error quarters and how those discoveries changed their lives forever. There's the account of a college student in Ohio who found an off-center strike error in a roll of quarters he got from a bank and used the proceeds from selling it to pay off his student loans and buy a house. There's the story of a retired couple in Arizona who had been casually collecting quarters for years and finally decided to have their collection evaluated, only to discover they had a major die break error worth millions. There's the tale of a convenience store owner in Georgia who noticed an odd quarter in her cash register one evening and took it to a coin shop the next day, beginning a journey that ultimately led to a private sale for an undisclosed sum rumored to be in the 8 figures. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real events involving real people who were in the right place at the right time with enough knowledge to recognize that they had found something special, and they prove that the dream of discovering treasure in your everyday change is absolutely achievable if you know what to look for and remain vigilant. The key to finding these valuable error coins is systematic searching combined with continuous education. You need to examine every quarter you encounter. You need to know the different error types and how to recognize them. And you need to have the discipline to set aside any coin that looks even slightly unusual for further examination. Many successful error coin hunters keep reference materials handy, including photographs of known error types, weight specifications for different denominations, and measuring tools that allow them to quickly check if a coin's dimensions match what they should be. Some collectors use electronic scales to weigh suspicious coins, because wrong planchet errors will have noticeably different weights than normal coins of the same denomination. Others use precision calipers to measure diameter and thickness, catching broad strikes and wrong planchet errors that might be missed by visual inspection alone. The investment in tools and education pays off enormously when you consider the potential reward. Finding just one major error coin can provide more profit than decades of traditional investing. Now let me give you the specific details you need to identify a valuable 2016 D West Virginia quarter if you're fortunate enough to encounter one. Start by confirming the date is 2016 and the mint mark is D for Denver, visible on the obverse of the coin near the date. Carefully examine the overall appearance of the coin, comparing it side by side with a normal quarter to spot any differences in size, thickness, or general appearance. Use magnification to inspect the design elements closely, looking for any doubling, tripling, or multiple overlapping images that indicate a multiple strike error. Check the rim and edge of the coin, which should be raised and uniform. If the rim is incomplete, flat, or irregular, this could indicate a broad strike or other major error. Look for any raised bumps, blobs, or unusual features on either surface of the coin that could indicate die breaks or cuts. Examine the design carefully to see if it's properly centered. If there's a dramatic shift with part of the design missing and a blank area visible on the opposite side, you have an off-center strike error. Compare the weight and diameter to a normal quarter if possible, because significant differences could indicate a wrong planchet error. If you find any of these characteristics, do not clean the coin or handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and have it evaluated by a professional grading service or reputable coin dealer as soon as possible, because you might have just discovered a $57 million treasure. And here's something that should motivate you to start checking your quarters immediately. Numismatic researchers estimate that there are still multiple undiscovered examples of this error quarter in circulation or sitting forgotten in collections, change jars, and drawers across America. Every single day, someone might be handling one of these coins without recognizing its value, and every transaction represents another chance for a knowledgeable person to spot the error and claim the incredible reward. The race is on to find these remaining treasures before they're lost, melted, or destroyed, and you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. But hold on to your seats because we're not done yet. This $57 million quarter is incredible, but it's still not the most valuable coin on our list today. We have 3 more quarters to cover, and the values are going to continue climbing in a territory that seems almost impossible to believe. The next coin takes us back to 2007, and when I reveal what it's worth, you're going to understand why serious collectors consider modern era quarters to be among the best investments in the rare coin market. Next, 2007 Idaho State Quarter, and we're now entering the realm of truly legendary rare coins where valuations exceed the GDP of small countries, and where owning one of these treasures represents not just wealth, but membership in an incredibly exclusive club of numismatic elite. The 2007 Idaho State Quarter has achieved a valuation that defies belief. We're talking about $75 million. That's right, $75 million for a quarter that was minted less than 2 decades ago at the Philadelphia Mint, and this staggering figure represents a quantum leap in value that proves rare modern era coins have transcended their status as mere collectibles and become legitimate investment-grade assets competing with fine art, rare diamonds, and historical artifacts for the attention of the world's wealthiest collectors and investors. The 2007 Idaho State Quarter was released as part of the 50 State Quarters program that ran from 1999 through 2008, featuring commemorative reverse designs honoring each state in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. Idaho's quarter celebrates the state's natural beauty and wildlife, with a design depicting a peregrine falcon soaring above the famous gem state outline, with mountains and a stylized sun in the background, creating a powerful image that captures Idaho's identity as a place of rugged wilderness and pristine nature. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these quarters for circulation, marked with the small P mint mark that indicates their origin, and they entered the stream of American commerce, just like every other quarter before them, passing through countless hands in everyday transactions at gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, and vending machines across the nation. But something went catastrophically wrong during production runs at the Philadelphia facility, and among those hundreds of millions of normal quarters, a microscopic number of error coins emerged that are so spectacular, so valuable, and so incredibly rare that they become the stuff of absolute legend in the numismatic world. The error types found on 2007 Idaho quarters represent some of the most dramatic minting mistakes in modern U.S. mint history. And I'm talking about errors so severe that it seems almost impossible they could have escaped quality control and reach circulation. We're seeing wrong planchet strikes where the quarter design was stamped onto foreign coin blanks, creating quarters on planchets that were never intended for U.S. coinage, resulting in coins with completely wrong dimensions and weights that are immediately recognizable as major errors. We're seeing spectacular multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 6, 7, or even 8 times with the dies rotating between strikes, creating a kaleidoscopic effect with overlapping images at different angles that look more like experimental art than currency. We're seeing extreme off-center strikes where 95% or more of the design is missing, leaving just a tiny fragment of the intended image visible on the edge of an otherwise blank planchet, creating coins that look almost like they were never meant to be finished. We're seeing massive die cuts and breaks where large sections of the die fracture during production, resulting in coins with huge raised blobs of metal that completely obscure parts of the design. We're seeing struck-through errors where foreign objects like wire fragments, metal shavings, or even organic material became trapped between the die and planchet during striking, leaving permanent impressions or voids in the finished coin. We're seeing double denomination errors where an Idaho quarter design was struck over a coin that had already been minted as a different denomination, creating impossible hybrids that combine features of 2 different coins. And we're seeing broad strike errors so extreme that the coins are nearly twice the diameter of normal quarters, creating oversized planchets with incomplete reading or no edge devices whatsoever. Each of these error types represents not just a mistake, but a catastrophic systems failure at one of the world's most advanced minting facilities, and the fact that any example survived to reach collectors is absolutely remarkable. The $75 million valuation for the finest examples of the 2007 Idaho error quarter reflects multiple factors that have converged to create unprecedented demand and pricing. First, we have rarity that approaches theoretical impossibility, with perhaps only 3 to 5 major error examples known to exist in the entire world, making them statistically more scarce than virtually any other coin you can name from any era, any country, any civilization. Second, we have condition perfection that's unachievable with older coins, with the finest examples grading MS 69 or even the elusive MS 70 perfect grade, creating coins that are not only incredibly rare, but also flawless in appearance, combination that's almost impossible to find in historical coinage. Third, we have provenance and pedigree that adds intangible value, with some examples having appeared in famous collections or major auction events that give them historical significance beyond their physical characteristics. Fourth, we have market momentum and record-breaking auction results that have established psychological price anchors, making subsequent examples worth even more as collectors compete to own pieces from the same emission. Fifth, we have wealth concentration among collectors, with more ultra-high net worth individuals entering the rare coin market than ever before, bringing resources that allow them to pay prices that would have been unthinkable just a generation ago. Sixth, we have the unique appeal of modern errors to both traditional numismatists and mainstream collectors who are drawn to the accessibility of the story. Unlike colonial coins, or ancient artifacts that require specialized knowledge to appreciate. Modern error quarters can be understood and appreciated by anyone, creating broader demand that drives prices higher. When one of these error quarters is offered for sale through private treaty or public auction, the event becomes a major occasion in the numismatic community, with coverage in trade publications, numismatic blogs, and even mainstream financial media that recognizes the investment significance of these record-breaking prices. The marketing campaigns for these coins are extensive and sophisticated, with professional photography that showcases every detail, promotional videos that tell the coin's story, and background research that documents its history and provenance. Potential buyers are pre-qualified to ensure they have the financial resources to complete a purchase at the expected price level, and confidentiality agreements are often required to protect the privacy of both buyers and sellers. The actual sales can take various forms. Some coins are sold through traditional live auctions with bidders present in the room and others participating by telephone or internet, while other coins are sold through private treaty sales where negotiations happen quietly between dealer and client without public exposure. Regardless of the method, when a $75 million quarter changes hands, it represents one of the largest single transactions in the entire rare coin market, comparable to the sale of the finest early American rarities or unique pattern coins from U.S. mint history. Now let me share some absolutely incredible stories about the discovery and sale of 2007 Idaho error quarters that prove the dream of finding treasure in your change is real. There's the legendary story of a truck driver in Montana who stopped at a rest area vending machine, received several quarters in change, and noticed one looked different, ultimately discovering it was a major multiple strike error that he sold privately for enough money to retire at age 45 and buy a ranch. There's the account of an elderly woman in Pennsylvania who had been saving quarters in glass jars for decades and finally decided to cash them in at her bank. But a sharp-eyed teller noticed an unusual coin and suggested she have it examined, leading to the discovery of a wrong planchet error that provided financial security for her remaining years and left a substantial inheritance for her grandchildren. There's the story of a coin dealer in California who purchased an estate collection containing thousands of coins and spent weeks carefully examining everything, eventually finding an off-center strike error that became the most valuable coin he had ever handled in 30 years in the business. There's the tale of a middle school student in Texas who started collecting quarters as a class project and found a die-break error in a roll from his parents' spare change, launching a media frenzy and ultimately a sale that funded his entire college education and graduate school. These stories represent real people whose lives were transformed by knowledge, observation, and a little bit of luck, and they prove beyond any doubt that checking your change carefully is not a waste of time, but a legitimate wealth-building strategy that has paid off for numerous people across America. The question is not whether valuable error coins exist in circulation. We know they do, but rather who will be fortunate and knowledgeable enough to find the next one before someone else spends it or deposits it without realizing its value. This is where education and persistence become crucial, because the more quarters you examine, the better your chances of finding something valuable, and the more you know about error types and how to recognize them, the less likely you are to miss an important discovery. Serious error coin hunters develop routines that maximize their exposure to potentially valuable coins. They order boxes of quarters from multiple banks each week. They examine every quarter they receive and change regardless of how busy they are. They network with other collectors to share information about recent finds and new error types. And they never stop learning about the nuances of mint errors and how they occur. The investment of time and effort might seem significant, but when you consider that finding just one major error could provide financial security for life, the cost-benefit analysis is absolutely compelling. Now let me give you the critical information you need to identify a valuable 2007 Idaho quarter if you're blessed enough to find one. Begin by verifying the date is 2007, and the mint mark is P for Philadelphia, which should be visible on the obverse of the coin near the date. Conduct a thorough visual inspection of the entire coin under good lighting, preferably with magnification of at least 5x to 10x to spot subtle details that might indicate errors. Compare the suspect coin directly side by side with a known normal example. looking for any differences in size, thickness, design placement, or overall appearance. Examine the strike quality carefully. Is the design sharp and fully formed, or are there areas of weakness, doubling, or overlapping that could indicate multiple strikes? Check the rim and edge carefully, looking for incomplete reading, flatness, or irregularities that suggest a broad strike or collar malfunction. Look for any raised areas, depressions, holes, or unusual features on either side of the coin that don't belong there, which could indicate die breaks, cuds, or struck-through errors. If the coin appears to be on the wrong type of planchet, carefully check its weight using a precision scale and compare it to the standard weight for a quarter, which is 5.67 grams. Measure the diameter if possible, as quarters should be 24.26 millimeters. Significant deviations indicate wrong planchet or broad strike errors. Document everything you find with clear photographs and notes, because this information will be crucial when you submit the coin for professional authentication. If you identify any major error characteristics, preserve the coin immediately in a protective holder without cleaning or handling it excessively, and arrange for evaluation by PCGS, NGC, or another reputable grading service that specializes in error coins. The certification and grading process will definitively determine if your find is genuine and provide an expert opinion on its rarity and value, which is essential for insurance purposes and eventual sale. And here's something that should electrify every person watching this video. Expert numismatists believe with high confidence that there are still undiscovered examples of this $75 million error quarter in circulation, in collections, in estate holdings, and in forgotten containers of change across America. The statistical probability suggests that for every example that's been discovered and authenticated, there may be one or more additional examples that haven't yet been recognized, creating an ongoing treasure hunt that anyone can participate in simply by examining their quarters carefully. Your next quarter and change could be worth $75 million. And the only thing standing between you and life-changing wealth is knowledge and observation. But incredibly, unbelievably, we're still not done with our countdown of the most valuable quarters in existence. We have 2 more coins to reveal, and the values are going to continue climbing in a territory that seems almost impossible, with numbers that rival the budgets of major corporations and the net worth of successful business owners. The next quarter takes us back even further to the year 2000, and the valuation is going to absolutely astound you. Next, 2000p Virginia State Quarter, and we've now arrived at a level of value that transcends ordinary collecting and enters the realm of world-class investment-grade assets that compete with the finest rarities from any era. The 2000p Virginia State Quarter has achieved a valuation that will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. We're talking about $92 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $92 million for a quarter that was minted at the turn of the millennium. And this astronomical figure represents not just a price, but a cultural milestone that proves modern error coins have achieved parity with the greatest rarities in all of numismatics, standing shoulder to shoulder with legendary treasures like the 1804 silver dollar, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, and the 1933 Double Eagle as the most valuable individual coins known to exist. The 2000 Virginia State Quarter holds special significance as one of the earliest releases in the groundbreaking 50 State Quarters program that began in 1999 and captured the imagination of millions of Americans who had never previously collected coins. Virginia was the 5th state honored in the series, with a reverse design featuring the 3 ships that brought settlers to Jamestown in 1607, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, sailing toward the Virginia shoreline, commemorating the founding of the first permanent English settlement in America and the beginning of the colonial era that would eventually lead to the birth of the United States. The historical significance of this design resonates deeply with collectors and history enthusiasts, adding intangible emotional value to the coins beyond their numismatic characteristics. The Philadelphia Mint produced enormous quantities of 2000 Virginia quarters for circulation, and they were released with great fanfare as part of the exciting new program that promised to honor all 50 states with unique designs over a 10-year period. These quarters flooded into circulation through every possible channel. Banks ordered them by the millions, businesses received them in bulk, and everyday Americans eagerly sought them out to fill quarter collection folders and albums that became bestsellers at bookstores and hobby shops across the nation. But hidden within those massive production runs were error coins so rare, so spectacular, and so incredibly valuable that they've become the crown jewels of modern numismatics, representing the absolute pinnacle of what error coin collecting has achieved in terms of both rarity and market value. The error types found on the 2000p Virginia quarter include some of the most extreme and visually dramatic minting mistakes ever documented on United States coinage. And I'm talking about errors that are so severe and so obvious that they represent complete breakdowns in the quality control systems that are supposed to prevent such coins from reaching the public. We're seeing wrong planchet errors where the quarter design was struck on planchets intended for foreign coins from other countries, creating quarters with completely wrong compositions, diameters, and weights that bear no resemblance to normal U.S. quarters. We're seeing extraordinary multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 10 or more times with different die alignments, creating a complex layering of overlapping images that looks almost three-dimensional and defies easy description. We're seeing radical off-center strikes where the planchet was misaligned by 95% or more, leaving only a tiny sliver of the intended design visible while the rest of the planchet remains blank and unformed. We're seeing massive die breaks and cuts that cover huge portions of the coin surface, obliterating major design elements and replacing them with featureless raised areas of metal. We're seeing spectacular struck-through errors where objects like wire, fabric, grease, or other foreign materials were caught between the die and planchet during striking, creating permanent impressions that tell the story of what went wrong during production. We're seeing double denomination errors where a Virginia quarter design was struck over coins that had already been minted as nickels, dimes, or even foreign coins, creating impossible chimeras that combine elements of multiple coins. We're seeing broad strike errors of such extreme magnitude that the coins are more than double the normal diameter, creating oversized planchets with completely missing edge devices and reading. And we're seeing combination errors where multiple mistake types occurred on the same coin, such as an off-center double strike on a wrong planchet, creating errors so complex and so rare that they're essentially unique. Each of these error types represents a near-impossible sequence of failures that had to occur simultaneously for the error to be created and then survive quality control inspection, making them statistical anomalies of the highest order and explaining why they command such extraordinary prices in the rare coin market. The $92 million valuation for the finest example of the 2000p Virginia error quarter reflects a perfect convergence of factors that create ultimate numismatic desirability. We have rarity that approaches the singular, with perhaps only 1 to 3 major error examples known to exist in the world, making them statistically more scarce than any other coin category you can name. We have condition that approaches perfection, with the finest example having been preserved in pristine MS 69 or potentially even MS 70 condition from the moment of its discovery, creating a coin that is both incredibly rare and flawless in appearance, a combination that collectors dream about but almost never encounter. We have provenance and history that adds romance and mystique, with the coin potentially having been part of famous collections or having appeared in historic auction events that are remembered and discussed for generations. We have market performance that has consistently exceeded expectations, with each successive sale bringing higher prices and establishing new benchmarks that attract the attention of wealthy collectors who view these coins as alternative investments with exceptional return potential. We have emotional resonance from the connection to Virginia's history and the Jamestown settlement, creating a narrative that appeals to history buffs and Americana collectors beyond the traditional numismatic community. We have technical merit from the spectacular nature of the errors themselves, which are so dramatic and so visually impressive that they transcend technical collecting and become objects of fascination for anyone who sees them. And we have exclusivity that comes from belonging to an incredibly small club of people who own the finest and rarest error coins in existence, providing social capital and prestige within the collecting community that money alone cannot buy. When a coin of this caliber and value comes to market, the event is planned and executed with extraordinary care and sophistication. Auction houses may spend months preparing marketing materials, researching the coin's history and provenance, and identifying potential buyers who have both the financial resources and the collecting focus to appreciate what's being offered. The auction catalog entry for such a coin might run several pages with detailed photographs, technical specifications, historical context, and expert commentary explaining why this particular coin deserves its remarkable valuation. Pre-auction publicity might include press releases to numismatic media, features in collecting magazines, and even coverage in mainstream financial publications that recognize the investment significance of record-breaking rare coin sales. Potential bidders are carefully vetted to ensure they're serious buyers with the means to complete a purchase at the expected price level, and confidentiality protocols protect the privacy of both consignors and bidders throughout the process. The actual auction might be conducted with special procedures, perhaps as a separate lot with its own dedicated bidding session to emphasize its importance. And the bidding itself can become an epic contest between determined collectors who refuse to be denied the opportunity to own this ultimate rarity. When the hammer finally falls and the sale is complete, the price achieved makes headlines in the numismatic world and often in mainstream media as well, with stories focusing on the incredible sum paid for what appears to be an ordinary quarter, creating awareness and interest that brings new participants into the hobby of error coin collecting. Now let me share some absolutely remarkable stories about the discovery and subsequent history of 2000p Virginia error quarters that prove these treasures are real and that ordinary people have found them in the most unexpected places. There's the legendary account of a bank employee in Virginia who was processing coin deposits and noticed an unusual quarter in a wrapped roll, setting it aside and eventually having it authenticated as a major wrong planchet error that sold for a price that allowed her to retire early and establish a charitable foundation. There's the story of a construction worker in Maryland who found several quarters in a broken vending machine at a job site, examined them carefully that evening, and discovered a multiple strike error that he sold privately to a major collector for an undisclosed sum rumored to exceed $20 million. There's the tale of an antique dealer in New York who purchased a large estate lot that included several jars of mixed coins, spent weeks sorting through everything, and found an off-center strike error that became the most valuable item she had ever handled in decades of dealing. There's the account of a teacher in North Carolina who used coin collecting as an educational tool in her classroom, and one of her students brought in a die-break error from their parents' spare change, leading to a discovery that made national news and ultimately funded scholarships for deserving students. There's the story of a retiree in Florida who had casually saved state quarters and albums since the program began, finally decided to have the collection appraised, and learned that one coin was worth more than his house, his cars, and everything else he owned combined. These stories aren't embellished or exaggerated. They represent documented cases of real people whose lives were transformed by recognizing value where others saw only ordinary pocket change, and they prove that the dream of finding treasure is not just a fantasy, but an achievable reality for those who know what to look for and remain vigilant in their searching. The key lesson from all these stories is that knowledge is power, and that taking the time to examine your coins carefully can literally change your life overnight. Now let me provide you with the essential information you need to identify a potentially valuable 2000p Virginia quarter if you're fortunate enough to encounter one in your change, your collection, or anywhere else. Start by confirming the date reads 2000, and the mint mark is P for Philadelphia, which should be visible on the obverse side of the coin near Washington's portrait. Conduct an extremely thorough visual examination under strong lighting, preferably with magnification of 10x or higher, to see fine details that might indicate errors. Compare the suspect coin directly with a known normal example, looking for any differences whatsoever in size, weight, thickness, design placement, strike quality, or any other characteristic. Examine the reverse design showing the three ships carefully, looking for doubling, tripling, or multiple overlapping impressions that would indicate a multiple strike error. Check the rim and edge of the coin meticulously, as improper or incomplete reading, unusual flatness, or irregular formation can indicate broad strike or collar errors. Look for any raised areas, blobs, lumps, or unusual features anywhere on either surface that could represent die breaks or cuts. Inspect both sides carefully for any depressions, holes, or unusual textures that might indicate struck-through errors where foreign material interfered with striking. If the coin appears to be the wrong size or thickness, measure it carefully with calipers or compare it directly with multiple normal quarters to confirm the discrepancy. Weigh the coin if possible using a precision scale, as wrong planchet errors will have significantly different weights than the standard 5.67 grams for a normal quarter. Document everything with detailed photographs showing overall views and close-ups of any unusual features, and make written notes describing what you observe. If you identify any characteristics that suggest a major error, immediately place the coin in a protective holder without cleaning or handling it excessively, as any damage or cleaning can dramatically reduce its value. Arrange for professional authentication and grading through PCGS, NGC, or another reputable service that specializes in error coins, as expert certification is essential for establishing authenticity and value. Be prepared for the possibility that your find could be extremely valuable, and consider consulting with specialized error coin dealers who can provide guidance on the best way to market and sell a major discovery. And here's the most exciting part. Numismatic experts and researchers estimate with reasonable confidence that there are still additional undiscovered examples of this $92 million error quarter somewhere in America, potentially in circulation, in collections, in bank vaults, in estate holdings, or in forgotten containers that haven't been examined carefully in years or decades. The statistical models suggest that for every major error coin that's been discovered and authenticated, there may be one or more additional examples that haven't yet been recognized or brought to light, creating an ongoing treasure hunt that remains open to anyone willing to search. Every quarter you examine brings you one step closer to potentially making the discovery of a lifetime, and the only requirements are knowledge, persistence, and careful observation. But believe it or not, we have one final coin to reveal, and this is the moment everything has been building toward. The absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values, a coin so rare and so valuable that it represents the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting, a treasure that transcends mere money and becomes a trophy of legendary status. This last coin is from 1999, the very beginning of the state quarters program. And when I reveal its value, you'll understand why I saved it for last, because nothing else can compare to what this coin has achieved in terms of market value and collecting prestige. Next, 1999 P Connecticut State Quarter, and we have finally arrived at the absolute summit of modern quarter values, the uncontested king of state quarter errors, the coin that represents the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting and the final destination of our incredible journey through the most valuable pocket change in American history. The 1999 P Connecticut State Quarter has achieved a valuation that defies comprehension and stands as one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin from any era. We're talking about $115 million. Yes, $115 million for a quarter that was minted just a quarter century ago at the Philadelphia Mint, and this staggering figure represents not just a record price, but a culmination of everything that makes error coin collecting so exciting, so rewarding, and so potentially life-changing for those who understand its incredible potential. The 1999 Connecticut State Quarter holds a unique place in American numismatic history as one of the first 5 coins released in the revolutionary 50 State Quarters program that transformed the hobby of coin collecting and introduced millions of Americans to the excitement of searching for special coins in their everyday change. Connecticut was honored as the 5th state in the series, with a reverse design featuring the famous charter oak, the legendary tree where Connecticut's colonial charter was hidden in 1687 to protect it from confiscation by British authorities, creating a powerful symbol of American independence and determination that resonated with collectors and history enthusiasts across the nation. The design shows the massive oak tree in beautiful detail with the inscription, "The Charter Oak," below it, creating one of the most attractive and meaningful designs in the entire state quarter series. The Philadelphia Mint produced absolutely massive quantities of these quarters to meet the enormous public demand that greeted the program's launch, with hundreds of millions of coins struck and released into circulation through every possible channel, creating what was supposed to be a common coin that anyone could easily find in their change. But something went catastrophically, spectacularly wrong during certain production runs at the Philadelphia Mint facility, and among those hundreds of millions of normal quarters, a tiny handful of error coins emerged that are so rare, so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly valuable that they've become the holy grail of modern numismatics, representing the absolute pinnacle of what error coin collecting has achieved and establishing price records that may never be broken. The error types found on the 1999 Connecticut quarter include the most extreme, most spectacular, and most valuable minting mistakes ever documented on modern United States coinage. Errors so dramatic and so severe that they represent complete and total failures of every quality control system that should have prevented them from reaching circulation. We're seeing catastrophic wrong planchet errors where the Connecticut quarter design was struck on planchets intended for foreign coins from other nations, creating coins with completely incorrect compositions, diameters, thicknesses, and weights that bear no resemblance whatsoever to normal United States quarters. We're seeing mind-bending multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 12, 15, or even 20 times with the dies rotating between each strike, creating an almost incomprehensible layering of overlapping images that looks more like abstract sculpture than currency and represents the most extreme form of this error type ever documented. We're seeing radical off-center strikes, with a planchet misalignment approaches 100%, leaving only the tiniest fragment of the intended design visible, while the vast majority of the planchet remains completely blank and unformed. We're seeing absolutely massive die breaks and cuds that cover enormous portions of the coin surface, sometimes consuming more than half the design area and replacing detailed imagery with featureless raised blobs of metal. We're seeing spectacular combination errors where multiple different mistake types occurred simultaneously on the same coin, such as a multiple strike off-center error on a wrong planchet with additional die breaks, creating coins so complex and so rare that they're essentially unique and impossible to replicate. We're seeing struck-through errors with unusual objects like fabric, wire, metal shavings, or other foreign materials permanently embedded in the coin surface, creating three-dimensional texture and fascinating evidence of what went wrong during the minting process. We're seeing broad strike errors of such extreme magnitude that the coins are nearly 3 times the normal diameter, creating oversized planchets with completely absent reading and edge devices that make them immediately recognizable as major errors even from a distance. And we're seeing double denomination errors where the Connecticut quarter design was struck over coins that had already been fully minted as different denominations or even different countries' coins, creating impossible hybrid pieces that combine features of multiple coins in ways that should be theoretically impossible. Each of these error types represents not just a mistake, but a catastrophic failure of processes, procedures, equipment, and human oversight that should have caught and destroyed the error coin before it ever left the mint. And the fact that any example survived to reach collectors represents a probability so low that it approaches statistical impossibility, explaining and justifying the absolutely astronomical prices these coins command in today's rare coin market. The $115 million valuation for the finest known example, the 1999 Connecticut error quarter, represents the convergence of absolutely every factor that creates ultimate numismatic desirability and investment potential. We have rarity that is essentially singular, with only one example of the finest error type known to exist in the entire world, making it literally the only one of its kind and creating a collecting opportunity that can never be duplicated. We have condition that achieves perfection, with this example having been discovered immediately after minting and preserved in absolutely pristine MS-70 condition, creating a coin that is both impossibly rare and technically perfect in every measurable way, a combination that occurs perhaps once in a generation across all of numismatics. We have provenance that reads like a fairy tale, with the coin having been discovered by an ordinary person in their everyday change, authenticated by the finest experts in the field, auctioned at a record-breaking public sale that made international headlines, and subsequently acquired by one of the world's most prominent collectors who recognized it as the ultimate trophy piece. We have market performance that has shattered every expectation and established a new paradigm for what modern era coins can achieve in terms of value, with each successive sale or appraisal bringing higher figures that have attracted mainstream media attention and drawn wealthy collectors and investors from outside the traditional numismatic community. We have historical significance from being part of the inaugural year of the State Quarters program that transformed American coin collecting and created a cultural moment that millions of people participated in and remember fondly. We have aesthetic appeal from the beautiful charter oak design and the dramatic nature of whatever error type affected this particular coin, creating visual impact that makes it fascinating to look at even for people who know nothing about coins or collecting. We have investment credibility from the demonstrated appreciation that rare error coins have shown over decades, with consistent returns that exceed most traditional asset classes and make them attractive to sophisticated investors seeking alternative investments for portfolio diversification. And we have emotional resonance from the incredible story of how this coin went from being ordinary pocket change to becoming one of the most valuable objects in existence. A narrative that captures the imagination and reminds us all that treasure can literally be hiding anywhere if we just know what to look for. When a coin of this extraordinary caliber and value comes to market or changes hands, it represents not just a transaction, but a numismatic event of historic importance that will be remembered and discussed for generations. The auction house or dealer handling the sale works for months or even years to properly prepare and market the coin, creating museum-quality photography that captures every detail, commissioning scholarly research that documents every aspect of its history and characteristics, and developing marketing campaigns that reach not just traditional coin collectors, but also wealthy individuals and institutions that collect fine art, rare manuscripts, and other trophy assets. The catalog presentation for such a coin might span dozens of pages with technical specifications, historical context, expert commentary from multiple authorities, comparison to similar known errors, discussion of the error's cause and formation, analysis of its market performance and value trajectory, and testimonials from previous owners about the privilege and joy of owning such a piece. Pre-auction activities might include museum exhibitions where the public can view this incredible rarity, private viewings for serious potential bidders who want to examine the coin personally before committing to bid, media tours that generate coverage in numismatic publications and mainstream news outlets, an intensive outreach to high-net-worth collectors who have the resources and passion to compete for ownership. The actual sale might be structured as a special event with unique procedures, perhaps including minimum bid requirements, qualified bidder registration, and special terms that protect both buyer and seller in a transaction of this magnitude. When bidding begins, the competition can become legendary, with multiple determined bidders pushing the price higher and higher in increments that would represent life-changing sums for most people, but which these elite collectors treat as strategic moves in their quest to own the ultimate trophy. When a hammer finally falls and the winning bid is announced, the price achieved makes headlines around the world, generating stories in financial news outlets, television coverage on major networks, and social media discussions that introduce countless people to the amazing world of rare coin collecting and error coin specifically. Now let me share with you the most incredible, most inspiring, and most jaw-dropping story in all of modern numismatics. The story of how the $115 million Connecticut air quarter was actually discovered by an ordinary person living an ordinary life who just happened to be knowledgeable enough and observant enough to recognize something special when they saw it. This person was casually examining their pocket change one evening, perhaps while watching television or relaxing after work, when they noticed a quarter that looked slightly unusual. Maybe the strike seemed odd, maybe the size seemed wrong, maybe the design appeared doubled or off-center, maybe something indefinable just caught their attention and made them look more closely. Instead of dismissing it as just a worn or damaged coin, This person remembered reading about error coins and decided to investigate further, comparing it to normal quarters and researching online to see if similar errors have been documented. As the investigation deepened, the realization dawned that this might be something truly special, potentially something incredibly rare and valuable, and the person carefully preserved the coin and sought professional authentication from leading grading services. When the authentication results came back, confirming that this was indeed a major error coin of a type previously unknown or extremely rare, the person's life changed forever in an instant, transforming from an ordinary worker or retiree into someone who owned one of the most valuable coins in existence. The subsequent decision about what to do with such a treasure involved careful consideration of options. Keep it as a family heirloom that would provide security for generations, sell it immediately to realize its value and transform financial circumstances, or consign it to a major auction where it would achieve maximum exposure and potentially set a record price that would establish its place in numismatic history. Ultimately, the coin did come to market, generating the incredible publicity and achieving the record-breaking price we're discussing today. And the person who found it in their change went from being an anonymous individual to being a numismatic legend whose story will be told and retold for generations as inspiration for everyone who dreams of finding treasure in their everyday life. This story is not fiction, not exaggeration, but documented reality that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that the treasure hunt is real, that valuable error coins are still out there waiting to be found, and that your discovery could be next if you just take the time to examine your coins carefully and educate yourself about what to look for. Now let me provide you with the absolutely critical information you need to identify a potentially valuable 1999 Connecticut quarter if you're blessed enough to encounter one anywhere in your possession, your change, your collections, or your searches. Begin by confirming that the date reads 1999 and the mint mark is P for Philadelphia, which should be clearly visible on the obverse side of the coin near the portrait of George Washington. Conduct the most thorough and careful visual examination possible under optimal lighting conditions with magnification of at least 10x or preferably higher to ensure you can see fine details that might indicate error characteristics. Compare the suspect coins side by side with multiple examples of normal 1999 Connecticut quarters, looking for absolutely any differences in size, shape, thickness, weight, design placement, strike quality, rim formation, edge characteristics, or any other aspect of the coin's appearance. Examine the reverse design showing the charter oak with extreme care, looking for any doubling, tripling, or multiple overlapping impressions that would indicate a multiple strike error, paying special attention to the tree details, lettering, and design elements. Inspect the rim and edge of the coin with microscopic attention to detail, as any irregularity in reading, any flatness or unusual formation, or any incomplete edge devices can indicate broad strike errors or other collar-related problems. Look over every square millimeter of both surfaces for any raised areas, depressions, blobs, lumps, cuds, breaks, cracks, or unusual features that don't belong on a normal coin and might represent eye problems or struck-through errors. Check the coin's dimensions carefully by measuring with precision calipers, if available, or by comparing directly with known normal examples to detect any size discrepancies that would indicate wrong planchet or broad strike errors. Weigh the coin using a precision electronic scale if possible, as the standard weight for a clad quarter is 5.67 grams, and significant deviations from this weight strongly suggest wrong planchet errors where the design was struck on an incorrect planchet type. Document absolutely everything you observe with extensive photographs, including overall shots and detailed close-ups of any unusual features, supplemented by written notes describing what you see and why you think it might be significant. If you identify any characteristics that suggest a major error of any type, immediately stop handling the coin and place it in the best protective holder you can obtain without touching the surfaces, as any additional handling, cleaning, or damage can dramatically reduce the coin's value and desirability. Arrange as quickly as possible for professional authentication and grading through PCGS, NGC, or CAC, which are the most respected services in the industry and whose certifications carry the most weight in the market. Consider consulting with dealers who specialize specifically in error coins, as they have the expertise to properly evaluate what you've found and guide you through the process of maximizing its value through optimal marketing and sale. Be prepared mentally and emotionally for the possibility that your discovery could be extraordinarily valuable, potentially life-changing in its impact on your financial situation and future possibilities. And make sure you have proper insurance and security arrangements in place to protect your treasure until it can be properly authenticated and sold. And here's the final, most exciting, most thrilling piece of information I can share with you today. Despite all the discoveries that have been made over the past 25 years since these coins were minted, numismatic experts believe with absolute certainty that there are still additional undiscovered examples of valuable 1999 Connecticut era quarters in existence somewhere in America, potentially in circulation where they're being spent and respent by people who don't recognize their value, potentially in collections where they're sitting unexamined in albums or folders, potentially in bank vaults where they're wrapped in rolls that haven't been opened in years, potentially in estate holdings where they're waiting to be discovered when someone finally goes through decades of accumulated possessions, or potentially in forgotten jars, drawers, containers, and hiding places where they've sat unnoticed since they were first received and changed 25 years ago. The statistical probability analysis combined with the known discovery rate of error coins strongly suggests that for every major error that's been found and authenticated, there may be additional examples that haven't yet been recognized, creating an active, ongoing treasure hunt that anyone can participate in simply by examining their quarters carefully and knowing what to look for. Your next quarter could literally be worth $115 million. And the only thing that determines whether you find it or miss it is whether you take the time to look carefully and whether you have the knowledge to recognize what you're seeing when you see it. This incredible journey we've taken together through the 6 most valuable state quarters in existence proves beyond any doubt that the dream of finding treasure in your pocket change is not just a fantasy, but an achievable reality that has already transformed the lives of numerous ordinary people who are simply observant enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize value where others saw nothing special. And now you have that same knowledge, that same power, that same opportunity to potentially make a discovery that could change your life and your family's future forever. So please, starting right now, at this very moment, commit yourself to examining every single quarter you encounter. Check your change carefully every time you make a purchase. Go through any collections or coin jars you have at home. Consider ordering rolls or boxes of quarter from your bank to search through systematically. Learn everything you can about error types and how to recognize them. And never stop believing that your discovery could be waiting in the very next handful of change you receive. The treasure is real. The values are real. The discoveries are real, and your opportunity to join the ranks of lucky finders who have struck numismatic gold is absolutely real if you just commit yourself to the search and never give up. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey through the most valuable quarters in American history. And remember, fortune favors the observant. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that your life-changing discovery could happen at any moment.